and so we should be over by 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are using your phone for audio, please do make sure you use the PIN that is provided so that the integrated audio will work through our system. We'll also keep all the attendees muted in order to cut down on background noise. If you have a question during the webinar, I'll just go over this feature briefly. You should see a chat function on the right-hand side in your toolbar for GoToWebinar, and in that box there is a drop-down menu for who you can send those chats to. If you want to send it to the whole group, that's fine. Also, if you want to send a question to our staff, you can select send a question to staff from that drop-down menu, and it'll populate into our questions section, and then we will be monitoring that throughout the webinar. If you submit a question and it's not answered during the webinar or during the Q&A period towards the end, then we will follow up with you afterwards. Again, this webinar is being recorded and it'll be archived for future viewing, either for those who couldn't attend or anyone else who's interested. Again, my name is Kyle DeMars Johnson. I'm a program assistant with the Laser I3 program at the Smithsonian Science Education Center. If you're curious what I'm holding in my hands there, it's a meteorite from Antarctica. It is, if you're interested, it's ALH 84001. It started a little bit of a clamor in the mid-90s when some scientists believed that it had evidence of Martian life in bacteria. And my co-presenter today is Dr. Jayme Linton. She's an assistant professor of education. And Jayme, would you like to say a little bit about yourself?
Hi there, I apologize, I was muted. Hi, thanks everyone for being here tonight, and thanks Kyle for having me. I'm excited to co-present. So I am, like Kyle said, an assistant professor of education, and I primarily work with graduate students in our Master of Science in Online Teaching and Instructional Design program.
Thank you. And just a brief overview of our agenda. Obviously, we've made introductions for ourselves, and we'll go over some results from the survey that we sent out to you folks about your previous experience with the use of these online resources. We'll give an overview of some online resources to help facilitate collaboration among PLCs. Following that, we will ask Dr. Linton to offer her experience with electronic learning communities. Following that, we will have a question and answer period. For the PLC Leader Survey results, we got 12 responses, so a relatively small sample size, but we did get a number of responses from all three of the I3 regions. About half the responses indicated having used online tools to collaborate or share ideas with other teachers. And we got many positive results for using Google services with Docs and Drive and Google Plus as well. We also got a lot of positive responses to Wikispaces, though not a lot of people had direct experience with it. We also got mixed experience or responses to the use of Twitter and Facebook. Now, to set the stage for all this, we just want to clarify that none of these resources are required for use by us. We planned this webinar because we've had PLC leaders asking us what kinds of resources there are available out there and that could help them move their PLC forward. So we're encouraging you to bring in more teachers, including from other locations, to your PLCs, and these online collaborative resources can help in that task. So in the end, this is meant to be helpful in collaborating and growing and sustaining your PLC. Most of these resources are free. Some of them are not, and just to be upfront, the ones that are not free, we are not able to pay for their use. And Dr. Linton, if you wouldn't mind going over the next few pieces.
Sure, absolutely. We wanted to share some strategies and some tools to help you all with your face-to-face PLC work, as well as with extending your PLC work beyond your face-to-face time into some online spaces. So that's the goal of this webinar, as Kyle mentioned, is to support you in your face-to-face PLC work and share with you some ways that you can leverage some online tools to support and enhance what's happening with your face-to-face PLC. So ideally, you could design a flexible PLC where you're taking advantage of the affordances of face-to-face connections, face-to-face communication, and the resources you have in your face-to-face environment, along with some online tools that can help you extend that and provide you with some more flexibility.
Thank you. So one resource that I'm sure all of you have heard of is Facebook. It's incredibly widespread. Many people already have accounts. It is free to use, and because of how many people use it and their activity level on it, there's a lot of information being shared on there. There's a strong, obviously, linking capability, sharing photos and video, and the ability to have discussion threads as well. One potential weakness with it is a perception about informality, which can be true in some circles, but many people also use it for professional reasons. You can have public and completely private and hidden groups in Facebook, so that can serve as a buffer to the more informal side of it, perhaps. And you can also aggregate topics with the use of hashtags. And Dr. Linton, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of your experience using Facebook.
As Kyle mentioned, there are a lot of folks using Facebook for not only for personal reasons, but also for professional reasons. There are quite a few educators, actually, who are sort of blending their personal, private lives and their professional lives by liking and joining pages for professional reasons. I follow several professional organizations and several websites that have Facebook pages that sort of keeps me connected and feeds me with great resources that I can use in my courses and in my work with teachers. And that's sort of mixed in with some more private, personal things. And I don't mind that. Some teachers do. Some people don't really prefer it that way. So one option is to have two separate accounts. You can have a private, personal Facebook page that you use primarily for social reasons, and a different page that you would use for professional reasons. So that really is just a personal preference. It can work either way. I have a screenshot here just to share an example. I work with undergraduate students some, and the group that I worked with last year, they were senior teacher education students, so they're now in their first year of teaching, and they were a very tight-knit group. They created their own Facebook community, one of the students just sort of took the lead on that. She created a Facebook group and invited all of her friends, all of the seniors in that elementary education group joined this one Facebook group, and they used it to share resources. They're still using it, even though they're no longer students at Lenoir-Rhyne University. They're now out in their first teaching positions, and they're still using this to share resources. They post questions to each other all the time. Even over the summer, they were checking in with each other. Did you get your teaching license yet? You know, who's gotten a job? Where are you? Send us pictures of your classroom. So they really built this community face-to-face because they were in classes together a lot. And then they used this online space to extend that work that they were doing. And Facebook made a lot of sense for them because they're already there. So most of you are most likely on Facebook already. And so this can be a really good starting place if you're looking for an online tool to support the work of your PLC. If everyone in your PLC is already on Facebook, it might make sense to start there. Then you don't have to worry about learning a new tool and figuring something new out. So it worked really well for those students, and they invited me and a couple of other professors to join the group as well. So if they had questions about assignments, they could post it there, and I would get a notification on my Facebook wall, and I could just jump in and respond in real time. Wherever there was an issue, we could respond right away.
Thank you. So another big fish here is Twitter. It's again very widespread. Many people already have accounts. It is also free. It's what is, I think, commonly referred to as a microblogging tool, and it's excellent at that. It is focused on sharing a large volume of links and resources, and while that is definitely a strength, it is also potentially a weakness in that if you follow a lot of accounts, if there's just a lot of information coming down the stream towards you, it could potentially be overwhelming. You also have the option of aggregating topics here with hashtags, and just for those who aren't familiar, they are just an aggregation tool that originated with Twitter and then got brought onto Facebook later on. And they're really useful in finding very specific threads of conversation or topic matter. And Dr. Linton, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about this resource.
Absolutely, I would love to. As you mentioned, Kyle, Twitter can be overwhelming for folks who are new to Twitter because it does move quickly, particularly if you're following a lot of folks. But Twitter offers so many benefits, and I'll just share a few of those with you. Twitter is a really powerful search tool just to find resources to bring into your learning community. Twitter is a great place for that. You don't even have to have a Twitter account in order to use the Twitter search feature. So you can just go to search.twitter.com, and you can type a keyword or a phrase into the search box, and you can search through all the resources and tweets that are out there about that topic without even having to sign up. So it can be a really great resource even if you're not feeling like you want to take that step of creating a Twitter account and actually tweeting and following folks. So it's a great resource even if you don't want to go that far with it. But if you do choose to use a Twitter account, Twitter can be a really good support for your learning community. You could create your own hashtag for your PLC, and I would actually recommend that. Or possibly a few of your different PLCs that are located in different places could stay connected with each other by using a shared hashtag. So once you add a hashtag to a tweet, it sort of categorizes that tweet, and then it's searchable by that hashtag. So I did a hashtag search and included a screenshot here to share with you. The hashtag is SciStuChat, and it's a scientist-student chat, and it happens every second Thursday of the month, as you can see here. And they have students and scientists talking with each other over Twitter, which is just a really cool thing that's happening. So you can follow along with this hashtag and watch the chat happen just sort of as a lurker, or you can participate yourself by tweeting out and using the hashtag. And you can create your own PLC hashtag, and then anyone who tweets something as part of the PLC, you can just tweet it using that hashtag, and then every other member of the PLC can follow. And it's a really great way to share resources, share ideas, ask questions, and connect with not only the people in your PLC, but also connect with other folks like you see here happening with bringing scientists to students just through Twitter.
Excellent. Another resource is Wikispaces. I'm sure all of you have heard of Wikipedia, and it's based on the same concept of wikis. And you create these wikis, and they can be private. They're completely customizable. The greatest strength, I would say, is that you can collaboratively create a product or a set of guidelines or other output that can be used in the future by your group or your PLC or other folks. Wikispaces does cost money. I believe it starts at $50 per year. And I know Jayme has some great experience with that.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that you can get a free Wikispaces account as an educator. You can upgrade to what is the paid version for everyone else. They have a free educator version that unlocks all of the paid features for you. So that's one thing they do for educators. What you first have to do is create your wiki, and then you have to click on upgrade, and you can upgrade your wiki, and one of the upgrade options is to upgrade to a free educator account. So you request that upgrade, and I believe all they do is verify that your email address is an educator's email address. So don't use, like if you have a personal Gmail or something, don't use that, but do use the email address that's associated with your employer. And then you can unlock the unlock the premium account features for free as an educator. So it's a great resource they provide. Of all the tools Kyle and I are sharing with you this evening, Wikispaces has the most functionality. So if you're looking for a robust platform, something that can really do a lot, Wikispaces does more than Facebook, it does more than Twitter, it does more than all the resources we're going to share with you. This is a screenshot of a PLC that I used to work with. They had a wiki created for their PLC work. This is what it looked like. And I'm not sure if they're using this anymore. I have not worked with these folks in quite some time, but you can see on the right, those are the pages that I set up for these teachers to use. So we had a wiki page that had all of our agenda items. So we would just keep bulleted lists of the things we needed to address in our agendas. And then we had pages that linked to notes. So we took notes during our PLC meetings. And we were a face-to-face PLC, so we met every other week together in a common space. We had that, that face-to-face time. We build relationships with each other. We would share examples of student work. We did model lessons for each other. So we had a strong face-to-face PLC time. But then we used this online space to take notes, to post resources, and to have an ongoing space where we could share resources with each other and look back at where we had been and then keep pushing the PLC forward. There's another example, Kyle, if you go to the next slide, of a screenshot of one of the individual pages there. So that was, the first screenshot was the home page of the wiki, but then you can see here I've gone to the PLC notes, one of the PLC notes pages, just to show you what it might look like. But the great thing about a wiki is that you can make it look like whatever you want it to look like. A wiki can hold any kind of content, any format, any media that you want to upload. Wikispaces can handle that. And you can customize it to look like and function like you want it to, where Facebook is always going to look like Facebook and Twitter is always going to look like Twitter, and Facebook and Twitter are always going to function in the way that they function. With Wikispaces, you really get to customize and structure your wiki so that it works the way you want it to work. If you want to have a table to organize your resources, you can do that. If you want to embed videos, you can do that. If you want to create section breaks, you can do that. You can structure it however you'd like. You can upload documents, add hyperlinks as you've seen here, and embed any any kind of web content you can embed onto a Wikispace. So here again, you just have a lot of functionality, and also Wikispaces are editable by multiple people. So you can share editing rights with whomever you would like to share editing rights with. And then there doesn't have to be just one person, the PLC leader, for instance, who updates the page, but all PLC members can have editing rights to add content to your wiki. You're going to get, out of all these tools, you're going to get the most bang for your buck with Wikispaces.
Thank you. Another resource that we've heard quite a lot about is Ning. And Ning is one that we gathered from our survey results that not a lot of people have heard of. And it sounds like a really great resource. You can create your own community and discussion and collaboration. And it's really focused on building that community rather than just having a lot of activity like you might have with Facebook or Twitter, for instance. So there's curation and moderation tools, and they also integrate it with other social networks. And I believe plans begin at $25 a month for that platform. Any network you create can be public or private. You can create groups within your network, and the creator of any given network determines the appearance and functionality, which they've made very easy to do. There's no coding or anything like that. You can have forums, blogs, photo and video sharing, etc. Its main advantage is that it's a social network that is very customizable. And we've heard from several folks that they've been a part of or participated in some very successful and large PLCs that are hosted on Ning. And just to give you a brief idea of what it looks like, this is a group called the Educators Professional Learning Network. And as you can see, there are a number of members. You can share all kinds of links under resources, and you can archive chats that you've had. There are forums and blogs, and it does function to a degree like another social network where you have your own page, and then there are lists of members and other things. Another resource that is pretty exciting in that it is completely specific to PLCs is All Things PLC. It's created and hosted by a group called Solution Tree, which is a consulting group by the Dufour family. And if you've not heard of the Dufours, they are sort of PLC gurus of sorts. They've been working in the field for decades, and they host some quite large events and are really experts in the field. So this website is sort of a free resource offered by their group. So again, it's free, though you have to register as a member to get access to most of the resources. There are online forums for discussion on PLCs, and there are other resources to further your work, including just general overviews of PLC structures, blank master schedules, and other resources listed here. Again, this is a pretty exciting website. It's not enormous, but it's exciting because it's devoted exclusively to PLCs. And unlike some of these other resources, I would guess that it's not so much for use directly with your PLC, like a Facebook group, for example. But many of these resources, can be applied to your PLCs. I'll link over to that real quick. You can see that there are a number of PLCs across the country who are members of this group, and you can apply to be a model PLC if you like. They have articles and research as well as other evidence of success. They have a number of tools and resources and blogs, and there's a community forum as well. Another great resource is Edmodo, which is also free. It's similar in features to Facebook, but it's been designed sort of from the ground up to be focused exclusively on education and to be useful to educators and their students and parents. For that reason, it is a secure and closed environment, and you can create professional groups with which to have conversations, share a number of resources that you can upload in your what they refer to as your library, and that can be any media format. There is polling, other tools, and it's also free of ads, which is pretty great. Dr. Linton, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of your experience using Edmodo.
I would love to. Yeah, so one great thing about Edmodo, like Kyle already pointed out, is that it's very similar in look and feel to Facebook. I believe I have a screenshot of Edmodo coming up in just a moment. So Edmodo looks a lot like Facebook. Edmodo is really sort of like a safe Facebook type environment for schools. So it works in the same way in that you make a post at the top, and then the post will show up on your page in reverse chronological order. And a teacher can post or students can post. When you make a post to Edmodo, you can add a link, you could add an image, you can add files and documents. One feature that Edmodo has that Facebook doesn't have is that you can actually create folders for your resources. So within Edmodo, you can set up different groups. So you might have a group for one PLC that you belong to. You might even have an Edmodo for a class that you're teaching, or an Edmodo for your faculty on site at your school. So you can belong to different Edmodo groups, and some of the groups you may just be a member of, and some of the groups you may be the facilitator or moderator for. But you can have multiple groups, and you can have all of those groups to show up in your home feed, or you can select, just one group if you just want to look at the feed for that one group. And then within each of those Edmodo groups that you may manage or belong to, you can have folders of resources. So you can organize resources for students and for your PLC members much better on Edmodo than you can do through Facebook. You can have these shared folders with files that everyone can access and keep it nice and organized through the library that's available to Edmodo. You can see the structure of Edmodo here, where I made a post, and then I shared a resource, and then folks who were members of the PLC were replying, and we were having an asynchronous conversation that way, so a conversation that was happening on our own time, and we were talking about this one specific resource. So you can see that in that way, it looks very much like Facebook. So Edmodo is a really good option for extending the work of your face-to-face learning community, and perhaps moving towards a blended learning community where you spend some of your time discussing issues and sharing resources online, and some of your time doing that face-to-face.
Thank you. It sounds great. Another resource that I think you could all guess at is Google. Again, it's extremely widespread. Practically everyone uses it, not only for their search engine, but many for their email as well. So many people have accounts with Google already. It is also free, and they have a huge number of integrated services, including Google Docs or Drive, which includes features for collaborative editing, document hosting, surveys, and more. Google Plus, which is, I guess I would say their version of Facebook, but it's also pretty great because it's, again, integrated into the rest of all these other Google applications. Google Hangouts are a fun way to do video conferencing. You can do one-on-one conversations or group conversations, and there are a lot of neat features there, like in Skype, but I would say even more rich. With Google Communities, it sort of brings it all together. They can be public or private. Within the community, you can host Hangouts, discussions, and it, again, centralizes all of these services and features. And moving back a step, I just want to mention with Google+, one really great feature that is absent from Facebook is the ability to use circles, where you can specify and create as many different circles of people as you wish, and when you share something over Google+, you can specify which or however many circles you want to share that item with. So therefore you have complete control over who sees what on that network. And one of our PLC leaders, Elizabeth Crowder from Cleveland County in North Carolina, has been using these Google services already with her PLC and was excited about the idea about sharing some of her experience. So let me see if I can unmute her here. One second, sorry. And I apologize. It looks like in the end she wasn't able to join us. Dr. Linton, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your experience using Google Plus with PLCs.
I would love to. Google Plus really, the suite of Google tools really can be a very comprehensive solution for you if you're looking for a way to organize your face-to-face PLC work or to create a blended or online learning community. Google Plus really can be a comprehensive answer for you for that. As Kyle mentioned earlier, Google Drive provides a way for you to take notes, to collaborate on products, to lesson plan together. Google Docs is great for collaborative planning, for sharing resources, and then having access to those resources wherever you are from any device. And then Google Hangouts provides a collaborative, synchronous meeting space, so you could be meeting online at the same time from wherever you are on a mobile device or on a computer just by logging into Google Hangouts. You can see each other face-to-face and have a real-time conversation. And through those Google Hangouts, you can share. You can collaborate on Google Docs in real time. You can share your screen. There's so many really rich features of Google Hangouts that would make it a great place for you to extend your PLC into a blended or online PLC. And then the Google Plus circles and communities are also a really great feature for you as PLC leaders. Specifically, the Google Plus communities have a lot of functionality for you. This is a screenshot of a Google Plus community. So within a Google Plus community, the only folks who can join are folks that you've invited, unless you set the community to public and then anyone could join. So you could have a private community that only your PLC members are a part of, or you could belong to a larger community. There are some communities out there with thousands or even tens of thousands of community members because they're public, and anyone who's interested in that topic can join those communities. Communities are very focused. People are there for a specific reason. And one thing I found that is an advantage of Google Plus over some of the other other tools we share with you is that it really has a community feel. There's something about the look and the feel of Google Communities that really feels like more like a community. The focus is on the community members. And you can see here that you can structure a Google community in some ways that you can't structure a tool like Facebook, for example. So with Facebook, you have the wall, and everything is posted there to the wall, and you can't really sort through what's there other than scrolling down. With a Google community, you can see on the left that we have, in this one specific community, we've set up different categories for posts. So you could have the wall that is the all posts wall, which you should see here, and posts that go there are visible to everyone. Or if you want to have a conversation about something, a specific topic, you can go to one of those specific threads on the left, and you can see a more narrow, focused conversation, which is still part of the bigger community, but you can zero in on more specific topics there. You can have Google Hangouts actually happen through the community. So you can see here there's actually an event here posted on this screenshot in the bottom left corner. That was a Google Hangout, and so they can happen within your community. You can link Google Docs into your community, so all the work you do in Google through Hangouts and, and through Google Drive, you can integrate all of that into your Google Plus community, and that sort of could be your one-stop shop, so to speak, for your PLC work in an online space.
Great, thank you. And Elizabeth down in North Carolina has emailed me saying that she's on the webinar by phone. So Elizabeth, if you're able to, would you like to share your perspective having used this in your PLC? And it doesn't, I'm sorry everyone, it doesn't appear we're able to take her off mute while she's on the phone. Elizabeth will get your feedback and share it with the group afterward. For the next segment, we're going to ask Dr. Linton to discuss her work with both face-to-face and electronic learning communities, and talk about how to bridge the two and how to approach that. So Dr. Linton, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yes, thank you. So I've worked with both, well, with 3 different types of communities. I've worked with strictly face-to-face PLCs. I've worked with strictly online PLCs with folks who never saw each other face-to-face, and I've also worked with blended PLCs. And I will say, personally, my preference is a blended learning community, and I just think blended is ideal for adult learning as well as for student learning, because it allows you to maximize what's possible in face-to-face settings and maximize what's possible in online settings, and then really just play up the best features of those. But I'll talk you through sort of the differences and the benefits of each of the face-to-face and online. So if you're working as a face-to-face PLC, one of the greatest benefits is that you get to have a real-time conversation. You can walk down the hallway, you can talk with each other, you can share your struggles that are happening in your classroom, and you can have that dialogue happen in real time. And that's just something you can't really replicate, that face-to-face contact in an online environment. So that's probably the major strength, which is again one reason that blended works so well, is that you get to blend that real-time conversation with some of the benefits of online as well.
Hey, Kyle, can you hear me now? This is Elizabeth.
Yes, we can. Would you mind sharing your experience once we conclude this segment? We'll do it before the Q&A section. Is that okay by you?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thanks.
And so during those real-time conversations and being in a physical space together, you really can focus on relationship building with members of your PLC, which is harder to do online. It's not impossible online, but it certainly takes some more intention and purpose to build that relationship online when it really happens sort of naturally in a face-to-face environment. Also, when you're working in a face-to-face PLC, you have the same students, you have the same space, you have access to the same resources, and all of that can be a real benefit when you're trying to collaborate with other folks to build capacity and impact student learning. It makes sense that you have this shared space and the shared context and the same folks that you're coming in contact with. And so that provides you with this authentic context. You have the classrooms right down the hall. You can pop into each other's classrooms and see what's happening in real time, where in an online community you may have to imagine what the context would be like, or use some descriptions or perhaps images and videos to recreate some of that context that's naturally there in a face-to-face PLC. One limit of a face-to-face PLC is just the amount of time that you have. We only have so much time during the school day, and most of that time is spent working with students. So teachers don't have tons of time. They don't have extended amounts of time to collaborate with each other, to ask each other questions, to share resources, to tackle problems, to talk about their challenges and how we can solve those. There's only so much time we have in the school day, and we have to do lesson planning. We have to grade papers. We have to talk with parents. We have to prepare materials for class, and all of that stuff eats away at that time that's available for collaborating with your PLC. So that's one huge benefit of extending your PLC work into an online environment, either a fully online or a blended PLC, is that you can extend that time. It doesn't have to just happen during the school day. So an electronic community or an online learning community can be either synchronous or asynchronous, and it can include some of both. So for an online community, you can sometimes meet face-to-face through something like Google Hangouts or Skype, or some sort of webinar software like we're using this evening. But you can also have asynchronous conversations like you saw through the examples we shared on Edmodo and Facebook and the Google Plus communities and Twitter. Those were asynchronous conversations. So instead of walking down the hallway and getting a real-time response, or not having time to walk down the hallway and get a real-time response, instead you can pose your problem or your challenge or your question to your PLC asynchronously. So post it to the Twitter hashtag, or post it to Facebook, or post it to Google Plus or to Edmodo, and then when your PLC members have time, they'll get on there and respond. And so one of the great things about that is it lets folks respond on their own time, and it gives you the opportunity to extend the time you have available for collaboration, where maybe you only have 15 minutes during the school day when you can actually be talking together and not have other interruptions. If you can extend that time into, after your kids go to bed at night, you could sit down for a few minutes, or maybe on a Saturday morning you could do some more collaborating and resource sharing. When you're not so busy during the school day, that's a huge benefit, is just getting that extra time for collaboration. Another real plus of having an online space for your learning community work is the ability to have some shared documents and shared websites that help you look back and plan ahead. So one thing that some face-to-face PLCs I've worked with in the past have not been strong at is keeping documentation of the work that they've done and the goals that they've met and the resources that they've shared. So we do a lot of that face-to-face sharing, and oh, here's this great book, and oh, I had this awesome idea, and here's what my students did last week, and we talk about that verbally, and perhaps we even exchange some resources, some physical resources. But it's hard to make time to sit down and then document all of that. So then the following month, your PLC gets together, and you start out by saying, okay, what did we do last month? Oh, yeah, somebody shared this book. What was the name of that? And so we spend a lot of our PLC time doing that sort of thing, where in an online environment or a blended environment, if you're using Edmodo or Wikispaces or Google Drive or another tool, you can keep a documentation of what work your PLC has done, and keep notes and plans and goals and agendas for what work is coming up. So it really helps you have that continuity of PLC work in looking back to see what we've done before and looking ahead at what we need to do next. I actually did some research with some teachers who are online high school teachers. They are part of a learning community, an online learning community. They don't live close to each other. They never see each other face-to-face in person, but they meet online synchronously, and they work online asynchronously all the time. And they use Google Drive to do that, to share all their documents. And then they use a webinar type meeting space in addition to Google Hangouts. for synchronous meetings. And one of the biggest advantages that those teachers told me is that they can look back at any time. They can see what they did last week. They can see what the learning community did last month or last year. And they can always be looking ahead to see what's coming up on the agenda. That's a real strength that you can add to your PLC by taking advantage of some of these online tools. And in addition to having that time to extend collaboration with your fellow PLC members, you can also bring in other experts and resources that would be maybe impossible or at least difficult to bring into your face-to-face PLC. For example, the SciStu chat that was happening on Twitter, it makes something possible that wasn't possible before. Students are chatting with scientists from all over the world. So you can bring experts and other resources, connect with other PLC folks, connect with other scientists, with other science educators, bring those into your learning community, invite them to your Wikispace or invite them to your Google community, or share your Twitter hashtag with them. So you have an opportunity here to bring some rich resources into your PLC that would be more difficult to do if you were strictly working in a face-to-face environment. And so if you're looking to determine what's our next step here, so how can I determine as a PLC leader, how can I determine what tool would be the best fit for my learning community? You've seen several different options tonight, and you've sort of heard Kyle and I weigh the pros and cons of each. So I just want to make sure that you understand that the form follows the function. So the tool you choose depends on the purpose and the function that you want to get out of it. So you need to think about the specific nuances of your PLC. How does your PLC work together, and what is your vision for continuing that work? So first you needed to know and negotiate and agree upon the shared goals and expectations for the PLC. Where are we going with this PLC? What do we hope to get out of this, and what are our expectations for that work? So there needs to be a common understanding of that first. You wouldn't want to just say, well, I really like the way Google Communities look, so let's do that. So we wouldn't start there. We would start with an understanding of what the PLC is for. And then you want to choose a structure that will support the PLC in those goals, and whatever those expectations are for PLC work, you want a tool that will do that. So for instance, if one of your goals is that your PLC will meet face-to-face once a month and meet online synchronously once a month, then you're going to want a tool that will let you do that. Or if your expectation is that your PLC is going to be primarily face-to-face, but you also want an online resource where you can post resources and post your agendas, then you're going to want to choose something that meets that. So think first about your goals and expectations, and then about the structure that will support those goals. And then finally, you want to choose a tool that will do that. So whether you're going with a face-to-face structure or an online, completely online structure, or a blend of the two, then you'll choose a tool that gives you the structure that you need to meet those goals and carry out those expectations.
All right, thank you. That was excellent advice. We're going to move into our question and answer period. So if you have questions for our expert here, if you would please submit them through the chat and select in the drop-down to send them to send the question to staff, and that way they'll populate into our questions box and we will answer them. Well, since we don't immediately have any questions, Elizabeth, again, down in Cleveland County, North Carolina, would you like to briefly share your experience using the Google services?
That sounds great. I'm not sure what happened earlier.
Well, go right ahead. Thank you.
Like Colin, Dr. Linton said, most of you probably have a Google account or email address, but if not, you can download one for free, and it's super easy. I have the most experience with Gmail and Google Drive or Docs, and it is such a great resource to use for collaboration with your PLCs, especially when you have participants that work in different locations or not the same school or area as you. This is my first year using it to collaborate with colleagues, but it is awesome because you can use it to share documents and folders related to your PLC. It's kind of like having an electronic flash drive, you may say. But we even sent out our invitation to our PLC participants on Google Drive or Docs. And for our PLC, Heather and I plan on having teachers in our PLC group upload the created assessments that we're going to work on during our PLC time to Google Drive to share with other PLC participants. And our plan for doing this is to give teachers access to these created assessments electronically to edit them for their own classroom needs. For example, the assessments would be in a folder on Google Drive, and teachers could edit them to use with a group that may need an extension to the content being assessed, or it could be altered for a lower need. And in addition, I really like this part of it, is we can all sit in the same room and work on the same document online at the same time. For example, we all could have our computer and be on Google Drive, and we could each be on a different computer working on the same document collaboratively. So it's truly an easy tool for online collaboration with your PLC colleagues, and I really highly recommend it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've had a great question, and that is, and Dr. Linton, if you could please respond, do you have any thoughts on how to encourage school and district leaders to support and recognize blended PLCs?
That's a really great question. I think one thing that always helps is giving those leaders an experience, a taste of what it's like. So if you could set up some opportunity to share one of these tools with them, to walk them through the process, to maybe invite them to the community. Sometimes all they need is just to see and experience for themselves what it can look like. Also, you could just sort of list out, you know, like I did on the previous slide, list out some of the benefits there and share, you know, these are our PLC goals, so this is where we're headed with this, and here is how, you know, I can justify this. Here's how this tool or this structure of the blended PLC will really support that by extending the time we have for collaboration and by giving us a shared space for looking back at our history of the community and looking ahead. I think the first thing I would do is try to give them some sort of experience, because it's really hard for someone to understand and visualize and then support something that's new like that they really didn't, that they really haven't experienced for themselves. So I would try to find some way to do that.
Thank you. We've had another question. You know, you mentioned how there is some significant time pressure on teachers these days. Can you comment on how or whether using online collaboration tools like these winds up saving time for teachers?
I can. Well, just like I mentioned earlier, when you meet as a PLC and then you spend, you know, the first 10 or 15 minutes trying to remember what you did last time, or what was the name of that book, or where is that handout that you shared. If you have all of that online, you don't have to spend that time trying to remember and remind each other of what we did, or trying to locate that resource that you had, because you know, oh, I know if somebody shared this resource, it must be on the page that's about, you know, whatever the topic is. If you have a wiki page set up or an Edmodo folder set up, you'll know where to go. So if you're purposeful about that structure, then it really can be a time saver. You don't have to spend time looking back and wondering and searching for resources because you know where everything is. And again, you can maximize your time during the day. There are certain things as a teacher you have to get done during the school day while you're in the building with your students and while you have access to your resources. And then there are some things you can do when you're not in the school building at night. And so responding to a PLC question or posting a PLC resource might be one of those things that you can do in the evenings or early in the mornings or on the weekends, so that you can take advantage of the time that you do have in the school building.
Thank you. We've had another question. This person asks if we already have a well-established, face-to-face PLC, what's the additional benefit of using online tools? And I think we've already touched on this, but could you elaborate?
I could. So if you already have a strong face-to-face PLC, that's the most important thing, is to establish that in person, build those relationships, establish that face-to-face community is the right place to start. But then if you do choose to move into an online space, you can provide, like I mentioned earlier, you can provide that shared resource repository and a place for your community members to go when they can't connect face-to-face or when they can't find something that they're looking for. So having an online space where you share all of that stuff and you can get back to it later is great. Other benefits include being able to bring other people, other experts and other resources into the PLC instead of being limited just by the folks and the resources that are in your buildings. You have access to the world is at your fingertips online. So you can choose what sorts of resources you bring into your PLC. In an online environment, you just have access to so much more.
Great, great. Another question came in. The question is, how can I find people to join my online PLC? And I think this gets at recruiting additional members.
That's a great question. And so it sort of depends on what your topic is and what the purpose of your PLC is and the sort of people that you're looking for. One really great way, and maybe the best way that I've found of connecting with new folks for specific purposes, is through Twitter. So if you're not on Twitter yet, you may want to consider that, especially if you're looking for folks to bring into your PLC. Most of my professional connections that I've made online started on Twitter, and a lot of those have since moved into other spaces, like they've become my Facebook friends, or we've created a Google community and we do some work there, or perhaps we use Google Drive and we do presentations together, and I've even co-authored some articles and book chapters with folks that I met online. And typically that initial connection happens through Twitter. There are a lot of educators on Twitter, and as you've seen, even scientists and folks willing to reach out. So one really good way to find the right kind of people on Twitter, because like Kyle mentioned, it can be really overwhelming, one great way is to start with a hashtag. So for example, that's SciStuChat, or there's a hashtag that's just SciChat, S-C-I chat. Or you can just search for the keyword science, or search for science education, or if you're just focused on biology, search for biology on Twitter, and you're going to find people who are talking about that. And then so target those people, the people who are really actively talking about those sorts of things. You could follow their Twitter feeds for a little while, see what sorts of things they're sharing, and then determine whether those are people you may want to send invitations to. Participate in one of those SciStuChats that's happening every second Thursday of the month. Join one of those and see who's active in that, and find out if those are people that may be willing to be part of your community. So Twitter is not the only way to do that, but I think maybe a really good starting place.
Great. And unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we'll just have one quick last question that we pulled out of the question box here. We've presented a lot of resources here, and the question is, what do you think is the best electronic learning community, or the best platform, I guess I would say?
It's hard to say one is the best, because it really depends on, like I mentioned earlier, the purpose of your PLC, what your goals and expectations are for getting out of the PLC work. I have found that my two favorites, so I'll give my two favorites, would be Wikispaces and Google Plus communities. So I really think Wikispaces works well for face-to-face PLCs that also want to extend into an online space. So if you primarily are a face-to-face PLC and you're looking for an online resource that can support the work of your PLC, or maybe be a blended PLC, I think Wikispaces would probably be my preference. And I really like Google Plus communities for strictly online or for blended PLCs. And I think Google Plus really helps you through Google Hangouts and Google Drive. You can recreate some of the benefits of being face-to-face. So if you're a fully online PLC, or or a heavily blended with a lot of online PLC, I think Google Communities would be my preference.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that's about all the time that we have tonight. Dr. Linton has graciously offered to allow us to share her contact information. Her email address is on your screen now. We want to thank her profusely for taking the time to lend us her expertise, and it's been wonderful hearing from her. We also want to thank all of you for attending this evening and taking time out of your day to attend. And this webinar will be archived for later review and for any of your colleagues who are not able to attend tonight. So again, big thanks to Dr. Linton, and thank you for attending, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.